the Boehner plan, the Reid plan, they don't solve the problem. They don't even cut anything next year that is serious at all. I don't think Americans are going to buy it.
Again, I think that it's important. I think the premise is wrong, that we begin with increasing the debt ceiling.
Oh, that's such mean music. Well, with friends like these, that's what some conservatives are saying, including the Wall Street Journal, Weekly Standard, Bill Kristol, some in National Review. Fred Thompson's now weighed in. People like Colonel Allen West are supporting Speaker Boehner. Mitch McConnell supporting Speaker Boehner. Paul Ryan supporting Speaker Boehner's plan. Is it perfect? I think Speaker Boehner would probably say not, but this is the best we can do now. Joining us, I'm delighted he's with us, House Speaker John Boehner. First, Mr. Speaker, I want to ask you, is it true that you told some of the Republican members this morning that you need to get your A word in line behind this debt ceiling bill?
I sure did. Listen, this is time to do what is doable. And this bill isn't perfect. I told the members that the last couple of days. But that's what happens when you have a Democrat-controlled Senate and a Democrat in the White House. This bill on Sunday was agreed to by the bipartisan Senate leadership and working with me, and we believe that we can get this on the president's desk and make it law. Listen, we're not going to give him a $2.5 trillion blank check that lets him continue his spending binge through the next election. It's just not going to happen. Secondly, nobody wants to default. Nobody knows what happens when we get to August 2nd. And frankly, I don't think that it's in America's best interest. There are too many jobs and too much of American savings that could be jeopardized if we get past it. And so we had a meeting with our members this morning. I think we're making real progress, and I'm optimistic.
What was the blowback in the meeting?
Well, yesterday we got it kicked in the knees from the Congressional Budget Office. And along the way, they apparently changed the baseline. And so the bill that according to the January baseline, saves $1.2 trillion over the next 10 years, comes in at $850 billion, according to the March baseline. In other words, the CR that we passed to fund our government back in March saved a lot more money than anybody ever guessed. And so we're continuing to work through how we fix this and make sure that our members understand it. But our pledge was that, no smoke and mirrors. So I'm glad we went through the process with the CBO. I didn't want anybody to be surprised, although I was very surprised when I got this back yesterday.
So you're retooling
to our
things?
members this morning what happened, and I think they understand it.
So you're retooling the bill, and it'll be on the House floor tomorrow, is that right?
It will be.
Okay. The concern, I think, you saw this probably in the Wall Street Journal piece, that obviously they were urging Republican members to rally behind your approach here. But even the Journal said, as have many others, including myself, that the concern in this commission, yet another commission appointed in Washington, is that with a straight up or down vote, some renegade Republican could actually vote to increase taxes down the road. How do you respond to that?
Well, I think there are two checks on that ability. First, Mitch McConnell and I, the two Republican leaders, are not going to put people on this commission who are in favor of raising taxes. Secondly, because the current law baseline is what is used, it assumes that the AMT will be around forever. It assumes that the Medicare or the Medicare tax increase on those who make over $250,000 goes into effect. All of that is already built in the baseline, and so to raise taxes on top of that would be very, very difficult to do.
Is there any way you can win over Jim Jordan and Michelle Bachmann at this point? Are they asking for anything specifically that you could give them?
Well, I think what people want is cut, cap, and balance. It's what I want. But the Senate demonstrated, House passed it last week. The Senate demonstrated that they couldn't pass it. And at this point in time, we've got to find a vehicle that will pass, that will insist that the cuts in spending are bigger than the increase in the debt limit.
Why do you think these Republicans are joining, sadly, the Democrat chorus against this bill then? I mean, what's motivating them? You just laid out the fact that cut, cap, and balance, voted on, passed in the House, rejected by the Senate. White House has already said it would reject it. That's the reality. So why would they continue down this path, given the fact that the end game is only something that would probably be disastrous for both the country and the Republican Party?
Well, first, they want more. And my goodness, I want more, too. Secondly, a lot of them believe that if we get past August the 2nd and we have enough chaos, we could force the Senate and the White House to accept the balanced budget amendment. I'm not sure that I don't think that strategy works because I think the closer we get to August the 2nd, frankly, the less leverage we have vis-a-vis our colleagues in the Senate and the White House. And so the path that we've been on here for the last 4 days, I think is a reasonable path that will solve the problem, that will begin the process of making the tough decisions that need to be made in order to cut spending here in Washington.
What are the pure numbers now, Mr. Speaker? I'm looking at the numbers. It seems to me that you could lose 23 Republicans and still get this passed. So far, it looks like 19 have come out against this plan. Is that the right calculation?
Well, I don't know what the numbers are as we speak. We had a good day yesterday, and frankly, we had a very good meeting this morning, and we picked up more members. I do believe that we can win this, and my goal is to continue to work with all of our members to get them to the point where they say yes.
Right now, it seems that the momentum is on the Republican side of the equation. The president came out Monday clearly saying that we need more, quote, sacrifice from people who've benefited the most over the last few years. What does the president mean by sacrifice, and how can you, John Boehner, be against sacrifice?
It's all code words in Washington talk for we want to raise your taxes. There's an insatiable appetite from Democrats here in Washington to take more money from the American people so they can spend it here in Washington. It's the wrong thing to do. But, you know, when you look at the approach that I've taken, Barack Obama hates it. Harry Reid hates it. Nancy Pelosi hates it. Why would Republicans want to be on the side of President Obama, Harry Reid, and Nancy Pelosi? Beyond me.
Why do you think the Heritage Foundation, the Club for Growth, and other stalwart conservative organizations are so skeptical and critical of this plan, if indeed it's the best deal in the end that you think we can get? Well,
they, like me, they'd like to have more. And goodness, if I could get more, I would get more. But at this hour, there's no, in my opinion, there's no ability to get more. And the plan that we've got on the table is the best opportunity we have to hold the president's feet to the fire. He wants a $2.4 trillion blank check that lets him continue his spending binge through the next election. And this is the time to say no.
This is what the president's press secretary, Jay Carney, said yesterday about your plan.
The Speaker's proposal cannot pass the Senate, will not pass the Senate, will not reach the president's desk. That's why we need compromise.
So basically they're giving the veto threat, and what does that mean?
We'll see. You know, in the absence of any other plan, your plan becomes a plan. And the fact is, Harry Reid will not get the votes for his plan. My plan can pass the House, and it can pass the Senate, and the president will have no choice but to sign it into law.
So, in other words, the momentum, if the Republicans, enough of them get on board here, support this, the momentum is with you, is with this plan, goes to the Senate, overriding public sentiment, pushes it through the Senate, and then you really put the president in a box. Is that the game plan?
That's it. Pure and simple.
And before we let you go, Mr. Speaker, last Friday I sat down with you on the O'Reilly Factor, and the president, a couple of hours later, because we taped the segment earlier, the president comes out and says, well, you're not returning his calls. What was the real truth about that?
Well, the fact is the president was asking me for a $400 billion tax increase on the American people. And this is after Eric Cantor and I told him 3 days in a row that we were not going to increase revenue in these private discussions we were having. But what happened after I talked to the president on Thursday afternoon was I decided to step back and look at where we were going. And here the president was asking for more revenue while at the same time not being willing to make the fundamental changes necessary in our entitlement programs to ensure they be around for a long time. And it became pretty clear after months of conversations that we were never going to get there. I didn't want to make a precipitous call right away, but I did call the president, and finally told the president, Mr. President, I think these negotiations are over. He was very upset about it, and while he was upset, went into the White House briefing room and let the American people see how upset he was.
Did he leave several voicemail messages? Were they? How did he convey the messages early on? Did he just leave several messages? I mean, this is like I just love how this plays out.
I didn't want to call the president back until I had a firm decision and, frankly, a firm direction with where I'm going.
Okay.
Given the late hour with August 2nd coming up, I wanted to make sure I knew what direction I was going and how I was going to get there.
I was just trying to figure out.
I mean, I always talk to the president. I don't, we talk all the time.
Can't hear you, water running. I mean, remember the old commercial? I'll be right there. And then all of a sudden, my cell phone. Can you hear me now? I'm just thinking about ways that this went down. And Speaker Boehner, finally, I know you got to go. We really appreciate your taking the time. If the Republicans manage to take the White House next year, we got a Republican president, would you commit to sending the original cut, cap, and balance to his desk or her desk by the time he or she is sworn in?
Oh, absolutely. Are you kidding me? I think it's the ultimate answer is to have a balanced budget amendment in effect. We need to pressure members of Congress on both sides of the aisle to support a balanced budget amendment, and we may have some votes on that issue as early as this week.
Well, Speaker Boehner, we're really happy you return our call. So we just really appreciate it. Thank you so much for joining us. All right, you take care. Speaker John Boehner on the Laura Ingraham Show.